kitchen is kind of weird. It creeps me out sometimes. For a long time, nothing would hang in the spot. Everything just kept falling and breaking that I put there. No matter how many times I changed the nails or what. Cockroach lives in this digital clock. Get out of there. I hate you. This one almost never matches this one, even though I change it. And this morning, I walked out to find this glass like this. It's all shattered. And that's weird. Cats didn't do that because it was just sitting in the same spot where I left. The only thing I can think that happened is like the hot water pipes must have gone in the middle of the night. Maybe a neighbor used something and mine's connected to it. And then this part here heated up just enough to do that. It is next to the tap, you know. I've never noticed that metal there heating up, but now I'm gonna check it next time. I either always can't get the water hot in my building, or it gets so hot so fast that it burns me. Like it feels personal. Right now it's in won't heat up mode. When I first moved in here, I couldn't figure out the bathtub faucet. Somehow it's promptly, and I worried I was like living in a place with no hot water. That was a real moment ago. Might as well be. Anyway, 2001 music, looking at this thing. I'm sure the cats did it with their mind powers. Why'd you wreck that glass with your mind powers, Prisma? Her reaction was like pretty telling, I think. Now what? I posted a video about the table of contents of my book, but it just cut off like at 15 minutes. Some quirk of my phone, maybe pilot error, but I don't know. Seemed pretty random. So anyway, there's a video up about half of my book's table of contents. Great. Quality content, Mike. What are you gonna do today? Look at some books about one of the 50 states. All right. Sweet pea and Prisma. And squirrel. The prophecies from those little fake stained glass things are come true. I get you some wheatgrass? I will. Hey. Well, it's crazy. We've looked at most of the books in the collection now. Now I'm like looking at these New Mexico books. Not these. These. I actually looked at all the books over here, in that new comic section. I looked at all these single author and crit. Looked at everything in the hallway. Younger readers, various topics, anthologies, booklets. Only haven't looked at these kids' picture books, but I really want one of my kids to look at them with me. Because I did a video with my daughter Anodyne, you can read on the channel, and that was really fun, talking about books that were meaningful to her from this collection. And I want to do that. My daughter Sonora has said she would. She just turned 16. Doing videos about the paperback nonfiction, the writing books, the weird books. That case made me $600. Ask me how. Long ago. We have not looked at this mainstream literary fiction case yet, though that is the centerpiece of the channel. That'll be the last one I get to. I guess it's coming up after those kids' books, after the New Mexico books. I've put it off because I've been cultivating and growing, diversifying and expanding this case. I'm going to read it all over the course of my life. Ideally. That's the plan anyway. And I think there's a book or a documentary or something in it. Weird. Seriously, you can make a documentary about anything. These chumps will eat it up. Just kidding. No, all of life is interesting, you know. Hi, Sweet Pea. You seem to enjoy my company, don't you? Yet you're shy about petting. A paradox. Forget status. Forget fear. Those are from a 9/11 memorial from right after 9/11 in Boston. Kind of historic. But I found it blowing down the street near there, so it's not like I took stuff off a memorial. Everything here is something I found, except these stamps. They were from the hike, though, I think from Canada, so they're from around the time I found this stuff. That's from a photo developing thing. Just tied that in to that. Forget status. Forget fear. Don't forget, not responsible for orders left longer than 30 days. CHE 9300428. That's a weird poem. It should be punctuated by Canada 55 over and over. Yeah, all these are found photos. Who was that guy? For a long time I thought that might be an Elvis concert or something, but I think it's more like a talent show. Could be some known performer. A family. Kids laughing because their grandpa's asleep and they're in the bed, I guess. This one always intrigued me. I used that as a bookmark for like a year. Found that on the side of the road somewhere. Somebody on a solo, like motorcycle trip or something. Standing by an ocean, bit of ocean somewhere. Second lamp. I made it at the same time. That is also from that 9/11 memorial. Talk to each other. Isolation is not conducive to peace. Also blowing down that street. Boston would have like windy, miserable, cold days. It's a photo I took, but it's from that same time. From my then girlfriend's Polaroid. This is a postcard that another girlfriend sent me, friend, from a poet she'd seen read in Arizona. Grace. Oh, the beautiful bombs falling. Children leap as deer to catch them. Mothers burst open like flowers. Fathers spin away into orange air. Dick Backen. And it's signed. He's an Arizona poet. I looked him up. I don't know. It's kind of weird. You put together like wall art sometimes in your life, and then it just stays in your life for a really long time. There it is on the wall. Walls are a real mix of stuff. It's like photos from my life. That was a favorite job. Recently reconnected with one of those cats. It was great. Ian. We gotta hang out, Ian. He has some books about Albuquerque history he wants to give me. Awesome. And one is this history of the North Valley I've been wanting forever. It's me and my daughter Sonora, who was just turned 16. In this photo, she had Benjamin Button's disease. Wait, what? No, that's 16 years ago. Having kids on my art on my walls still. Maybe about my kids, I love them. I like random stuff for today. But that's actually cool, because that's like, it's just like this Emerson one, I had this cool idea of all the walls being completely covered. Like, this isn't even halfway done, It's like a total maximalist freak out of a house. Fortunately, that requires money a little bit. So, but you can, Seriously, I've got to figure out something. Rent is going to be in a week or so. Quote, people walking around in a Grateful Dead parking lot before the show, I need a miracle. Ismael, you're so beautiful. You are. You're such a beautiful cat. Look how politely you said. Oh, sorry. Skippy's always going somewhere. I do want to let them out of here. I just worry about the big dogs and the cars around here. I could not afford vet bills right now. And the likelihood of them getting hurt just goes up so much. But, they just roam such a small kingdom. A 2-bedroom apartment. Occasional pets, occasional treats. Frankly, I think they live in the throes of addiction most of the time. I think they think about treats all the time. They just assemble around my bed in the middle of the night waiting for morning to get treats. Books about New Mexico. I mentioned this book in the previous video because I think this one, Bob Julian's, this is the Sandia Mountain Starter Pack here. Honestly, this is an essentials kit, in my opinion. Sandias are the mountain range east of Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is a major mid-sized city in America, but it's in the half of the country that has much less of the population. 60% of the country's population is east of the Rockies. I'm in the sparser, bigger half. Things are more spaced out here. Things are definitely more crowded and developed than they used to be, and it'll continue on that path probably, unless we meet total collapse, which is also an option. But Albuquerque is the oldest continually inhabited urban center in America, arguably. People have been here for 800 years, probably longer when you think about Clovis and Folsom people and others that passed through here. This is the Essential Sandia Mountain Hiking Guide. This field guide to the Sandia Mountains. If there was just one of these, this is the everything for the Sandias. Really recommended. It's not just a field guide. It's a real authority and dense with information in so many subjects. This one, I'm biased, but I wrote this one. But it's the only history of the Sandias that I know of like this. Now, actually, the East Mountain Historical Society has books out. They have big collections of oral histories. I don't even know what there is out there, honestly, right now. But this is the one that I think I started something with Sandia Mountain history and making people look at the place a little more. Like in my book, I mentioned that this sign is always bent and it got repaired like right away. It had been bent there for years. And I mentioned that all these little towns didn't have their names on signs, and that happened really quickly after this came out. Also, the East Mountain Historical Society already existed, but I hope this helped get a jump in interest in the area and so on. After this, I had a history column for 10 years in this local magazine, East Mountain Living. Every issue but the first one. It's a body of work, honestly. And I wrote this column that I wanted to call East of Albuquerque, but it was called Turquoise Tales. Weird, I never met my editor, Rena, even though she lived here, and then she moved away. I always meant to go to lunch. These three, with, I gotta add this fourth, Okupin, this kind of gives the bigger, deeper roots of the Sandias, talks about their history and significance in indigenous lore, etc. If you live in Albuquerque and you love the mountains, and you should love the mountains if you live in Albuquerque, these 4 books, I think, enrich your life and your enjoyment of those mountains. Coltrane, who wrote the Sandia Mountain Hiking Guide, he does all the hikes in this book every year. That's like his goal that he does. This is Bob Julian and Mary Stuver's book. I've never met Mary Stuver, but I know Bob Julian. This is probably out of print. Okupin, Sandia Mountains of New Mexico. But, oh, I love it. It's great. Enlightening every time I read this. Really captures an ethos and a care about it, too. Talks about how the first environmental movement in the Albuquerque area really was when the government wanted to carve a road right across the middle of the Sandia's face. Right there, right along there. And it really caused an outcry across political parties. Everybody was like, no, don't do that. Bulldozers did a lot of damage, but that was later turned into parts of 2 different trails up there. One of them called Skyline. I don't love that. I'm thinking about rearranging this half of the room sometime so I can open this case all the way. Like I want this whole, I want to efficiency max the whole apartment, you know? Like do the most with the space, make it convenient, intuitive. But, got that framed picture. I don't think they framed it. I framed it later. At the premiere of this documentary, The Sandias, I narrate the history third of this. Oh yeah. I'm trying to fast forward it to the part that I'm in. It's like a really simple DVD that doesn't have tracks. Wait. Okay, forget it. Anyway, but Mike, you might be saying, I don't live anywhere near the Sandias. Why should I care about this random mountain range in New Mexico? And to you, I say, I guess you don't have to. It's crazy, though, how many movies the Sandias are in and how many TV shows. You've definitely seen them in the background of Breaking Bad. As the clouds, shadows, and light played over them. Certainly where I got my book title from. Shadows of Clouds on the Mountains. Book 102. Later. But you know, it's all one big story, everything. It's cool to learn any part of it. I buy local history books of other places if I encounter them. In fact, I lost a lot of those kind of books in The Purge. A book about it, just some random town in Louisiana. That's a sad one to lose. Oh, and I had one about George Washington's stay in this tiny little town somewhere in New England. That's some good stuff. This book, this is an unassuming treasure. This book came along, I was like, this is exactly the kind of book that I wanted to exist. Mosaic of New Mexico's Scenery, Rocks, and History. You can read about pretty much any part in the state, and it's this beautiful academic, photographically illustrated maps, etc. I learned a lot from this one. It happens to be like a magazine. Scenic Trips to the Geologic Past, number 8. Number infinity. Pretty sure I contributed to this one, Underground Guide to Albuquerque. This was a zine that just grew and grew, and then it got smaller, but Al Hurricane was a great Albuquerque celebrity for a long while. For his whole life. Now his son is a great musician. I met him at a mural painting, a community mural painting. I wrote the article on it for the Alibi. It was a color by numbers miracle that artist Luke Hussick put together. Pretty cool. The whole community came. My kids were little and they painted it. It was fun. Al and his family were great. But Maria started something. Not long after she did that, the convention center renamed Civic Plaza the Al Hurricane Performance Area or something. It's the Al Hurricane Stage. But this was a really cool and actually useful zine that promoted indie businesses and so on. It kind of blurs that line. I got big laughs at an event one time, though, when I wrote, it was like a review of the head editor of this, of his home, and just him like in his home when he thought no one was watching him. He was laughing harder than anybody, so we're good. This is just probably like my favorite book about Albuquerque. As far as synthesis, like analysis of what it all means, what's it about, what's the architecture expressed, what is this city? Should we be proud? Oh yes, this is about Albuquerque, my specific city. Like I said, I used to have a whole case. I wrote some of these, I think. I don't know which ones though. I did. I was in 2 issues, I remember that. I wouldn't have saved it if I didn't. Well, I got rid of my whole zine collection. I had a huge box full of zines, and it was pretty awesome. It could have been collected as a really, collection of anthologies, honestly. But, you know, you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them, as the Bible says. You can't keep everything. And you got to decide what to collect, as my friend Doug once told me when he got rid of everything but his DVD collection and gave me a ton of books. But now I'm kind of building up back the DVD collection. Fill this cabinet, I think, with thrift store scores. Just an idea I have, and I have other ideas around that. I've been kind of treating this DVD collection like a film education. I always watch all the extras, all the commentaries, everything when I watch something. I'm trying to see everything in there. I think it's like at 300 or so, except for like the kids' movies I've seen a million times with them. It's really been very informative and educational, and you start to feel like part of the in crowd when you watch so many commentaries from the people that make movies, and it feels like something you could do. I always said the dream career that I'll have someday, and I think I will have, even if it's just one or two, will be to alternate writing books with making movies. I'm also curating this collection, kind of like I am with this whole collection and with my paperback case, where I'm just always getting rid of stuff that I think is mid. Just got rid of a handful. Do I dare say what I think is mid that I got rid of? I got rid of What Dreams May Come. Got rid of Catch Me If You Can. What's the other one? Oh, Stranger Than Fiction. I don't know. I just keep, every time I watch that movie, I'm like, I don't like this movie. But I should like it. It's literary. Got Will Ferrell and actors I like. Sadly, I also got rid of The Prestige, but just because it skips. Get it again. Focus, Mike. You're talking about New Mexico books. The masses want you to talk about books that are only of interest to someone that lives exactly where you live. This is what they demand in the comment section, maybe. Like I think some comments are being hidden, and a lot of people say stuff like that. YouTube has these policies. Anyway, this is a brilliant book. City at the End of the World. V.B. Price, who happens to be the son of famous actor Vincent Price. I've gone to breakfast with the son of the actor Vincent Price. That's so crazy. And he looks like him. Wild. He doesn't go by V.B. He was really connected with the Albuquerque Tribune back when it was around, and I think much of this book began as things that he wrote for the Tribune. He was like an architecture critic. This is a first edition. I bought it special, and look, for Mike with admiration. He was so cool. I forgot this, but when I was writing a column for the Daily Lobo, UNM's student newspaper, RIP, I just went to a historical lecture on it, and it was so interesting. Daily Lobo had a crazy history and was an important part of the school, and now it's basically gone away. It's withered away. That little log cabin had withered away, to quote Royce McKinney, Pennsylvania folk singer, originally from North Carolina. But he gave me a recommend to write for New Mexico Magazine because he thought my student writing was good. And then they did. They hired me, and I wrote for New Mexico Magazine for a long time. Through 2 editors there. I could probably go back, and I should call them. Email. I have this podcast that's been on forever. Maybe that gives me some authority. We have over 100 episodes about Albuquerque history. It's called City on the Edge. Here's what our logo looks like. There are various ways to watch it online. I recommend SoundCloud, iTunes. What's the other one? Well, it was on Spotify, but we were talking about we should probably take it off there because they're being awful. Gizmo. The cool thing about cats is they nap in different places. They vary it up. So he's awesome. I feel bad that I kind of lost touch with him. We were going to meet up, and then what happened with that? That was my fault. Oh, another Mark Simmons book. Awesome. He really is like, you can't talk about New Mexico history or historiography, the study of history, without talking about Mark Simmons. This guy he wrote before he died like over 40 books, I think, about New Mexico. That's crazy. I disagreed with him. He was public about saying that Kit Carson Park shouldn't be renamed in Taos and people should just leave historical stuff alone. But he was kind of an old guy. There was a Kit Carson Park in Albuquerque, and it was changed to Rio Grande Park, and people still keep calling it the old one, but I think that's lame. Come on. The signs don't say what you're saying. I love books like this, because that is a really interesting story. The story of New Mexico is a story, part of the story of the big story of everyone and everything in human migration, right? I mean, Spain was this huge empire, but before that, the indigenous peoples, where did they come from, The land bridge, definitely. Some native peoples I met dispute that, but I think that's only because they feel like that contradicts their tribal oral histories and lore. But yeah, there's archaeological evidence of like campsites along the way. Many people at UNM study that stuff. They go up to Alaska and scuba dive down to old sites. So, you have about the story of horses here, evolving here, and then going extinct here, being used as a food source by indigenous people. and then coming back with the Spanish and being used by Anglos to subdue the Spanish. I mean, horses are, whoa. And there's a lot of conquest and blood and empire, and it's a crazy, huge story. Everyone should read Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. But I bet a book like this would be a good companion to that, honestly. Something about just like, and here's what happened. Oh, cool. This was signed by him, and what a signature. That's great. I gotta work on my signature. Mine's just a mess. It's my beautiful handwriting. Well, why would I cross someone's name out and put my own? That must have been a version of me at some point. Maybe that was a moment of whimsy. Frank Turley, a good man at the anvil. Chapter titles. The Spaniards, the Pueblos. I think those would be flipped around. The Pueblos, the Spaniards. More Spaniards than a few Frenchmen. The Mexicans, the Americans. All together, but not quite. Yeah, I feel like I read this a long time ago, but I should reread this. I do live here. Caring about where you live makes where you live better. I promise it's interesting, no matter where you are. What a wild cover. Benjamin Radford. I know this guy. I don't know. I've dealt with depression a couple times in my life, and a couple of times I just kind of had to start over and like make new friends afterward. And I think Ben was one of the people I just was like, what was that about? Anyway, he's a really cool skeptic writer. He's really skeptical about everything. I don't think I'm like on the same page as him about a lot of things. I'm much more agnostic about reality than a lot of the skeptic crowd. Reality's pretty weird. It's one thing to be logical in the cold light of day, but when you're out in the desert in the dark and remote places, reality don't care about you. Or it does, like a lot. Maybe cover. What if I know that person? Like, is that Felicia Davis? Designed by Lila Sanchez. Well, I hope that model is Lila Sanchez because they don't credit the figure in that striking image or the baby. Mysterious crystal skulls. Oh, I bet I'm quoted in that. Wrote an article on that. Yeah, these are old My Strange New Mexico topics. Cool. Oh, speaking of the Clovis people, this was the cowboy who discovered the first Folsom Points after a great flood near Folsom, New Mexico. An African-American cowboy who had been born a slave made a discovery that led to a revolution in science. Huge kind of bison that had been extinct. Nice. George McJunkin. Thanks in part to George McJunkin, we can realize how long and exciting the history of the American Indian really is. Terminology, of course, changes. In America, Native American is preferred. In Canada, First Nations. Alaska, Alaska Native. Okay. I've met Laura Paskus. Kind of got to know her a little. She's awesome. This is a great book. Awesome. It's about climate in New Mexico in particular. I quote this in my book's epigrams section. It's kind of eerie. Must have written on paper on top of this. Durward Ball told me to read this. Oh, Suzanne Forrest wrote this. I didn't think I realized that. She wrote this amazing book about the Placitas. Wow. Yeah, she wrote this one, which I'll move up into the discussion. And it's just about one church in Placitas, New Mexico. And it's so interesting, and she uses it so effectively as a microcosm. This book I read back in the day because my advisor, when I was writing this really research-intensive article that I wanted to submit to the New Mexico Historical Review about the murder of Carl Taylor, advised me to read this to like better understand the context. And I think I was frustrated at the time. I'm like, this doesn't even mention any of the places that I'm needing to learn about, but it does. I understand, and I came to understand like it was very important context to read. And for us, this is a real page turner. This one's really well written, and it's been a super useful resource to me. Placitas does have a long and varied history from being Las Huertas, one of the oldest sandy mountain towns going back to the 1600s, abandoned during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, but maybe not entirely. Placitas has some interesting folklore about that. And the site of a major silver boom in the 1870s, and various other successful mining booms around there. But then it was taken over by nuclear people in the 40s. General MacArthur lived there. There was a nudist colony. Hippies took the whole town over in the 70s. Many stayed. Now it's being developed and suburbanized. It had a chapter where movie stars lived there. Robert Redford had a place there. R.I.P. But the Preservation of the Village, New Mexico Hispanics and the New Deal. Interesting. I'm trying to remember this one. Let's talk to him, William Dubois. He's a famous New Mexico writer, kind of an environmental writer. Cool. I wonder what Laura's up to. This is an interesting book. Wish it was more interesting. No, it's interesting. It's just not the kind of book you read from cover to cover, I found. It's just a useful thing to have, and I've definitely found some quotable things in it that I've been able to use in articles. It's got a really good, interesting introduction. But there's just really unique linguistic things going on in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. That is, those are people that many are descended from Spain, not from Mexico. I met some interesting intra-New Mexico, like, racist attitudes up there. This one guy told me, all those people in southern New Mexico, he was Hispanic, they're descended from people from Mexico. We're descended from people from Spain. He had those trucker hot lady mud flaps, a devil and an angel on his car. So it wasn't that classy. Okay, this is an interesting book because it's just a bibliography. By the way, that story I just told had nothing to do with this book. I mean, like, Reuben Cook. I mean, it was related, but it had nothing to do with, like, this book's author or anything. I was in an anthropology class that Marta Weigel taught once. It was great. She had a very intense style, but this is such a useful book. If you're a scholar of a place, books like this, or of a subject. When I was writing about the murder of Carl Taylor and the penitentes being blamed, this book was so useful to me. It helped me track down a lot of things just by telling me of those things' existences. That, I think, was produced when she was working on this book. This is her big magnum opus. It might have been her dissertation, Brothers of Blood, Brothers of Light, the Penitentiaries of the Southwest. She's witnessed all their secret rituals and stuff. She told me, that she'd been present for a ton of things. And this is a group that whips themselves on their backs, throws themselves into cactus, etc. She was like an immersed anthropologist. When I wrote my long article about all that, which I'm going to adapt into a book-length chapter of book 2 of my book, connect it to 2 other stories and what was going on in my life at that time that I was writing them. San Mateo, Modesto said, Modesto Trujillo, the murderer in that 1936 story I've researched, his dad was a shepherd at San Mateo, shores of Mount Taylor. Not shores, slopes. I do like that idea, though. There's an apartment complex in Albuquerque called The Shores. Carl Taylor murder sources. I wrote on this in pen, like, you young evil kid. Ugh, that ain't right. But I guess I use New Mexico books like pretty intensive resources at times. Marta Weigel, you're awesome. Are you still around? You're cool. We emailed after I taught that class. She taught that class. I'm losing my mind. People of Chaco, Canyon and Sculptures. Chaco Canyon, if people don't know, is in New Mexico, in northwestern New Mexico. And it's amazing. It was like New York City back in the day for North America. Everybody went through there. They found macaw feathers from the tip of South America. They found shells from Alaska. They found everything there. The trade routes went through there. The image of Cocopelli spread through there. People traversed North America. They were connected. We're talking civilizations. In Casa Grande, Arizona, they had a 4-story building. Multi-story buildings were common. They had the atlatl, which was like an amazing weapon, revolutionized North America. This book says the atlatl coming to the West back then, wouldn't have been the West, to this area. It was like gunpowder hitting the North, Europe, But I helped this guy's son and daughter-in-law move. This guy was there. He's cool. He writes for the Skeptical Inquirer too, and which I had written for. I hadn't written for them. I wrote for like a newsletter that they had, the Skeptical Briefs. I was hanging out with Ben Radford, so I met Kendrick Frazier through him. I think these books are connected weirdly. But Chaco Canyon's amazing. If you go there, you'll just know you're in the presence of like something wondrous and huge. I find it silences people. What I want to see there that I've never seen is the glyph that's there of the 1054 supernova that formed the Crab Nebula. There's a carving of it. I was working at this wilderness camp last summer. A group went to it, and I couldn't. I wasn't in that group. I want to see it. When they carbon dated the fire pit there, it dated right to it. Okay, I feel like I just newly discovered this book for myself when I saw this on my shelf. I was like, I have this? This looks amazing. Seeds of Discord, New Mexico in the Aftermath of the American Conquest, 1646 to 1861. Yeah. New Mexico had kind of a chill attitude about it. There was a skirmish in Albuquerque. Wait, no, that wasn't that war. That was the Civil War. Hold on. There was just a complete takeover of Old Town, I remember. And there were different people that were on different sides of it, different wealthy locals. But it was pretty much decided in LA with the Battle of Los Angeles, which was not huge. I would argue, I bet that would still be a sensitive topic. I've never seen a movie on it. Is there a U.S. Mexico war movie that does the job? Is there a Pueblo Revolt movie? There's some stories that are like, it took a long time for there to be like a Martin Luther King movie or two. Harriet Tubman. Different topic, same idea, you know? Sounds great. I want to learn such things, you know? I feel like if where you live becomes deeper to you as a result of what you read, that's some good reading, you know? Like the historical things I know and my interest in graffiti and my own personal history and just my interest in what's going on makes driving around Albuquerque or walking around a constant source of interest to me on so many levels. Today I took my car to a shop on Wyoming, which is 2 exits over from where I am. I walked south on Wyoming and west on Central Home, stopping for breakfast at Vic's Vittles along the way. A restaurant who I used to know the owner of when I worked for the New Mexico School for the Blind, because he was attacked in a parking lot once and lost most of his sight in a stabbing. Horrible. But ran his restaurant nonetheless. I think he had some vision here and there. And as he got older, and I think got cataracts removed, he had peripheral sight restored to him. He was like thrilled about that. That's Vic of the Vittle dynasty. But walking south on Wyoming also, the graffiti was so interesting. I took so many pictures. Wow. I know too much about gangs and prostitution in Albuquerque right now from what I've just read today. Yikes. What I've been reading lately. And oh my gosh, really specific drug stuff. I'm like, it's really easy to know this stuff. The cops must never walk a beat in this town. It's cars for them, nonstop. There's so many things that would, just like if you just walked around one time, you'd see a million things. I saw all this chatter on the bridge written in markers about blue and green. And I'm like, oh, that's gotta be different colored pills or something. And then I saw this back of this bench. It just had 2 little swaths of blue and green painted there. I'm like, okay. And weirdly, I saw 2 people I knew. One was Bobby, this homeless addict guy that I see sometimes. What's weird is I had just stopped at a gas station and bought a coffee and seen his picture taped up on a on the door as somebody like they were looking out for. And he gets on my mind sometimes because he basically told me who did the West Mesa murders one time, and I need to interview him and just solve that case with the information I'm going to get from him. The West Mesa murders were this, 11 skeletons of women were discovered. 17 women are missing, so there's probably more on the west side near the volcanoes. Yeah, anyway, I saw him, so I need to sit down with him and pay him to let me formally interview him. Try to get as many verifiable details as I can. I should probably be a little quieter about it all and delete this video. People get moited. Let's just say he told me a very, very convincing story, and if I can get some details from it. Anyway, this looks like a good book. Oh, and the other person I saw that I knew was, this book's from 1979. This book and I have had parallel life stories. You could watch make an avant-garde movie that nobody would like and be satisfied with and everybody would question. That was just a split screen of my life and this book's existence. You could get away with that if you moved the book's screen around creatively, since a lot of it would be kind of passive. Sometimes the screen's just a sliver on one side, sometimes it moves to the top or the bottom. But maybe the bookstore would be more interesting than my own. This book's been kicking around for 46 years. Ugh. The other person I saw was this young woman who I knew worked at an area pizza place because I've run into her there and talked to her, but I knew her for a decade through this burrito place that she used to work at, and she knew my family. And it's kind of funny. She didn't say anything to me as she walked past. I feel like we're friendly and friends. She changed her name once. She used to always go on about she hated her name and she was going to change her name. I'm like, okay. And I think she got mad at me just for saying, I think your name's nice. And one time she was would only talk to my kids in the drive-thru at the burrito place. She's like, I'm mad at your old man. When I saw her more recently at that pizza place, I was like, hey, where do I know you from? You're super familiar. And she's all, did you ever go to this place? Yes, I had, only 8,000 million times. Billion trillion. Yeah, if you are what you eat, there were a few years there where I was basically made of fast food breakfast burritos. My gluten allergy that I have as of late is truly punishment from the universe. Right, well, we just looked at all the books on that top shelf about New Mexico between this and the previous video that aren't Images of America books. The next video I do is going to be just about those books. And I'll find the other ones that I have that are also part of that series that are in other sections. There's a couple. About selling this table again. I bet I could get $1,000 or $2,000 for it. It would save me, but it was my family's old table since the 1960s, and it feels like symbolically wrong. Writing memoir about your life is really kind of paralyzing sometimes. It makes things seem, makes everything seem symbolic and significant. You know, because you see the metaphors later on when you write about them. It's a great table, and I've got these 2 inserts that go in it. About staying alive, finishing the book, making sure the kitties have a home, and that my kids are okay. Right, local books, but as you can see, we touched on big topics here. We didn't even get into nuclear stuff, really. New Mexico has so many big topics. For more, you can go back and watch the videos from this New Mexico bookcase. Quote my daughter Willow, I'm good. Anyway, YouTube's infrastructure congratulated me because my channel has been getting more attention lately, it said. Some of the YouTube attention is weird. Like, I think they can just like allow you to be seen so that you get, I don't know what's going on. Like, twice I've gotten exactly 3.2 views, 3.2 thousand views for a short cat video. And many will just be 0. It's like they're not even in the loop or whatever. Weird. I miss the freer days of social media, etc., where the algorithms didn't control everything. Right, next time. Forget, this channel has a PayPal at Michael Farrell Smith. I suppose I should say like and subscribe and stuff, but whatever. What I really want is money. Yeah, but not for any sinister reason. It's for survival and so on. All right, at Michael Farrell Smith. I'll sick the ceramic hawks on you. Mike, don't threaten your viewers. Kind of amazing there's any. Anyway, okay. What's it all about, Prismo? What's it all about?